Hey there, folks. Welcome to yesterday's news on the Faithful Skeptic. Today, or yesterday, as the case may be, is Monday, July 23rd, 2018. So the stories that caught my attention today are a mass shooting in Toronto, and that Cuba is getting a new constitution. So, this latest mass shooting, this one's in Canada. Changes the argument a little bit for some people, I guess. Anyways, there's only two victims for which is good. These things can be a lot worse. They released the guy's name, but no motive. But he's got one of those stereotypical names, so we'll see what happens. There's not a whole lot to say about it. I'm not sure. I know Canada has much stricter gun control than the U.S., but I'm not sure if the gun that was used was legal or not. I suppose, in the next few days you can expect to have gun control advocates using this as an excuse to promote gun control and various gun control measures that wouldn't have stopped this incident, and have NRA types talking about mental health and proposing, well, probably not actually proposing anything, but hinting at proposals that wouldn't have actually helped anything, and then you'll have people like me saying, Carrie, there's not a whole lot proactively we can do, because, again, it doesn't help anybody if we trade mass shootings for bombings. And that, if you look at the statistics from Europe, that's the situation. If you get rid of guns, there's fewer mass shootings, but there's more bombings, there's more other kinds of attacks, So really what you need to do is be ready and be prepared and be alert if the random dude starts shooting into the restaurant, that you have a way to shoot back. So the second story about Cuba getting a new constitution. So one thing I found amusing was that all the news stories, the second thing that they cited that was interesting about the new Cuban constitution is that it might legalize gay marriage, because, the death of communism is way less interesting than gay marriage. But anyway, so it actually is interesting because it removes language specifically referencing communism, and only talks about socialism. I know, that's not necessarily any better, but it's a move in that direction, and that's interesting. So to me, that this represents maybe a second chapter in the death of communism. So we had the Soviet Union collapsed under its own weight. China liberalized, and it's still a totalitarian regime and pretty darn awful. They moved in the direction of capitalism enough to keep their economy from collapsing, and it looks like Cuba is deciding to take that route as well. That's potentially good news, that maybe communism. We know communism is self-defeating, and the question is always, how much death and destruction happens on the way out. And maybe this is a way for communism to die without war. I'm willing to take that risk. There is some, this brings in other questions about, is there a form of socialism that's sustainable, and does that pose a hope or a threat? I tend to lean towards the attitude that it would be a threat, not a hope, if there is a sustainable form of socialism. But I think there may be a window of sustainability, or at least short term, somewhere between the the social democracies in Europe that are really not socialist. They're capitalist with a big welfare state, and they use socialist rhetoric to promote those programs, but it's not at all a socialist system. There's no common. There's no group ownership of capital. There's not even the fascist model of directed and planned economic activity. It's just a big welfare state. So they tax you a lot and they give you a lot of government goodies. That is, again, it doesn't look like it's terribly sustainable. So far it looks like it ends in catastrophic debt and government collapse rather than starvation and genocide. But it was a situation like that led to the rise of the Nazis. So, maybe it doesn't lead directly to starvation and genocide, but maybe the collapse leads to starvation, leads to a worse form of tyranny that ends in starvation and genocide. Only time will tell. But so I don't know. I think there's reason for hope that if we can rather than crush the communist scourge, if we can lead Cuba out of communism and into something sane, something human and dignified, hey, there's hope for the rest of the world. And so I think that's a good thing. I think we're better off negotiating and leading by example with these types of states than trying to starve them out. That hasn't really worked very well. We've been doing that to North Korea and China, and Iran, and hasn't really worked. We tried it with Cuba. It didn't really work. These regimes just grasp power more tightly when we do that. So maybe some form of negotiation is the way to go. Maybe we can get them out with the carrot instead of with the stick. So hopefully this development in Cuba is a sign that that's working. So that's about all I have to say today, and hope you enjoyed it. If you did, like, share, subscribe, etc. If not, continue to ignore me, and we'll see you next time. See you later.